I am chasing the Olympics right now, chasing the Olympic Games. You don't make the Olympics by being an average athlete. There's, women, alcohol, all that stuff, like everywhere. Well, that's a interesting question you ask, because it's not an easy answer. It's really hard, and it's definitely been a struggle, and it's something that I still am working through and trying to figure out to this day. Ultimately, I want to be married and I want to have a family one day. It is a very difficult thing. It's very complex, and it's not as easy as just with women in like relationships. That's not like the best strategy. Being really intentional. I'm doing a really good job with communication, and I'm doing a good job planning great dates.
What are your thoughts on a girl showing some interest, and how would be a good way for a girl to do that? Good tips. I like it.
Thanks.
Where are you at with kind of your relationship status? Currently single, dating? How's that?
I'm single because
challenge yourself constantly.
You have to be a little bit patient.
I felt like I was in a hole looking up.
The whole idea is you have to become content in singleness.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't fired off some Instagram DMs.
The word dating is not mentioned in the Bible.
I dedicated my life at Tomorrow World to Jesus.
Welcome to the Single Man Podcast, where we delve into candid conversations with Christian men about their journey to faith, advice for their younger selves, and navigating dating. With a heart to reach men from all walks of life, dive into real stories of redemption, growth, and the hope found in following Jesus. I'm your host, Carlton French, a 29-year-old single Christian, and I'm excited for you to listen to this week's episode. Let's jump into it. Hey, I'm Carlton French. Welcome to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. Today I'm joined with my good friend, Darr Smith. Darr, how you doing, man?
What's up? I'm good. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming. I know there's some crazy traffic getting here.
Atlanta traffic, nothing like it.
Nothing like it.
Nothing like it.
So Darr's been a good friend of mine for the last year or so, and we started to get to know one another through our church here in Atlanta, Passion City Church, and we've been serving together recently with young adult nights and
Mechanical bowls mostly.
Mechanical bowl,
making sure
wrangling.
kids don't die on the mechanical bowl. Things
Yes.
like that.
Yeah. So it's been super cool getting to know you and your family, Darr, and as we were talking about the podcast and kind of learning about your story and your dating history, I thought it'd be great to have you come on and encourage other single men out there who are trying to figure things out.
Yeah, we're all trying to figure things out, but yeah, I've maybe figured a few things out and definitely not a few things as well. So
Right. Well, do you want to give the audience a little bit on your background, Darr? Like, where you're from, how old you are, what you do for work?
yeah, so I'm Darr Smith, and I have been racing professional triathlons for the last 6 years. So I race all over the world, and I am chasing the Olympics right now, chasing the Olympic Games, which has been a dream of mine since I was a little kid. And I've been doing triathlons probably since 2011, 2012. So for a long time, but racing professionally, internationally for the last probably 6 years or so. I went to the University of Georgia for 2 years and ran cross country and track there. And then I transferred to Arizona State University, where I ultimately graduated, and was doing triathlons out there full time.
Wow. And how old are you now?
I am 25 right now.
So you started racing when you were like 19, 18 or something?
Yeah, I started racing under like the professional category at like the age of like 18. I think I did my first one, maybe 17. But I started racing domestically in the U.S. At the age of like 13. I won my first national title when I was 14, and then again when I was 15, and then again when I was 19. So I've had a few national titles under my belt through that. And, as you progress through, getting older and just getting better, you start having more international opportunities. And I think my first international trip was in 2015 when I got to go to Austria with a group of USA Triathlon juniors. And that was a crazy memory, but it was the first time I got to go, over to Europe for a triathlon. And I've been back to Europe 5-6 times a year the last 5 or 6 years. So I don't know. I've been maybe like 30 times, something like that. So I've been to Europe a lot and gotten
all
to
for
travel
all
a
for
lot.
races.
All for races. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And the Olympic dream, like I'm sure, I'm never going to be an Olympian. Most people, it's probably like 0.001% of people can ever become an Olympian. What does that even look like to be an Olympic triathlete? Like how many people get to do that every Olympics?
Well, that's a interesting question you ask, because it's not an easy answer. Because basically, like in the top 30 in the world, there a few countries that have more than 2 individuals in the top 30 in the world get an additional spot. So you basically get as many spots as you have top 30 in the world.
Okay.
Like in terms of just like people ranked. So right now, and in the last Olympics, we only have 2 US men ranked in the top 30 in the world. The most you can have is 3, but that third spot is only awarded if you have 3 guys ranked in the top 30. And so far we have not been able to do that, which obviously, 2 spots versus 3 spots is a pretty big difference in terms of, how many guys make the team. That's a pretty big increase.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, I'm kind of chasing one of 2 spots right now. And right now we have 1 guy already qualified, which means I'm chasing 1 spot.
Oh gosh.
And there's only one on the table for, this next Olympic Games. So definitely, an outside shot for this next Olympic Games, no doubt. But I am gonna, give it my best shot of, whatever I can do over the next kind of 4 months going into the qualification like deadline. Basically, it's just like different races that it's going to end up being a selection panel that chooses someone based on results from the last kind of 2 years, but really results in the next 4 months. So it's kind of trying to target those races, and it's basically like, all right, who's going to be the best of kind of, I'd say there's like maybe 4 or 5 of us that they are looking at. And it's like, all right, we're going to pick one of these 5 guys who's going to be the best one. And so, they look at all the data they have in front of them and they choose it.
Yeah.
So that's how this current Olympic cycle and selection is going to go. And then it starts back over again for LA 2028. And that's really, where I want to make sure I get on that team and do everything I can kind of in the 2 years leading up to it in the Olympic qualification, like periods where you can qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. Great context. I'm sure people don't have any idea how
way too much information, and
but it's like
nobody cares.
Essentially, it's very difficult.
It is a very difficult thing. It's very complex, and it's not as easy as just being top like 3 at the marathon trials. The marathon Olympic trials are on Saturday actually, and top 3 guys go to the Olympics, and it's pretty easy. But for triathlon, there's a lot more nuances with it.
Okay, gotcha. And so you're also, this being the Single Man podcast, talk about dating and relationship status. Where are you at with kind of your relationship status currently? Single, dating? How's that?
I'm single because I don't know how to talk to women. I get scared. I'm single. And my last relationship ended in in January last year. So a little over a year ago.
Okay. Gotcha. And we'll get more into that. But also want to ask you like your high and low this last week. What's been, something that's been going well, something that's been hard you've been working through recently?
I would say high for the week. It's been a pretty good week for me because I'm on a down week from training. I had 2 really big weeks, and then this is a down week. So it's just kind of nice to wake up and like actually feel good. Like you put your feet on the ground in the morning and you're like, I feel pretty good today. Yeah. And I just haven't had that feeling in like 3 weeks. So that's pretty nice. And so I'd say it's been a pretty good week. I tried to use teeth whitening 2 nights ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it looks a lot whiter if you're not watching on YouTube.
It's a lot. It's really not at all, but it killed my teeth.
Oh,
So I've never used teeth
sensitivity.
whitening, and man, my teeth were really sensitive yesterday after doing that overnight. So I think I'm done with it. My dentist was like, "You're pretty young. Your teeth could be whiter." It's like, that's rude,
Wow.
but like, what should I do?
Yeah.
And she gave me some whitening things to put in my retainer. So anyway, that definitely not really that deep. It was not a fun day yesterday
Yeah.
with my teeth being very sensitive.
Right. I love that. And I also want to jump into kind of your story, your upbringing. Like how did you come to faith, and do you believe in Jesus now? Like how did that kind of come about for me when you were a kid?
Yeah, so I'm really fortunate to have grown up in a household that loved Jesus. And from the day I came out of the womb, I was in church. And, you know, it's always something that my family did and we always went to. And I think when I was around 6 years old, I had a conversation with my dad. And I said, I want to follow Jesus, and I want to ask Jesus into my heart, and I want to have a relationship with him. And as you can imagine, a 6-year-old probably doesn't really understand the weight and the, you know, sacrifice and just everything that means. And obviously I didn't know. But I kind of knew that was, you know, what I wanted to do, but it really wasn't until middle school when I started going to Passion City Church that it sort of became my own faith. And you know, I was going to church with my family my entire life.
Yeah.
But I started going to Passion City Church with my brother and a friend. And we were going to church in the morning with my family, and then we would go by ourselves at night. And I remember like my brother and I, or my mom was actually telling me this last week. She was like, yeah, you guys would tell us that it was a kids only church. No adults were allowed to go.
Wow.
So we didn't want the parents involved. And I think that was kind of cool though, because it sort of was a defining moment in my faith where it went from my parents' faith to like, this is a kid's church, like no parents allowed.
Yeah.
And it was sort of, you know, a sign of maybe what was going on inside, where it was something that was becoming my own, and it was, you know, transitioning to just like, my family goes to church every Sunday, and I read my Bible in the mornings and we pray at night. And, you know, I've prayed with my family every night, you know, all through elementary school, you know, whatever. We prayed together every single night, and, you know, it was awesome and amazing. But I think when it's just so routine, you kind of lose what it really means to follow Jesus. And so when I started going to church without my parents, I think that kind of opened up what following Jesus actually looks like in my life. And, you know, I went to Christian schools all growing up. And so it was, you know, it was kind of something that was normalized a little bit. And so it's just when I started kind of having my own, and then, you know, as I go into high school and then go off to college, and all of a sudden I'm, you know, at a massive public university,
Right.
where there's, you know, women, alcohol, all that stuff, like everywhere.
Yeah.
It really can, you know, try your faith, and it can, you know, put it to the test. And I think that was like really the first time. I think there was a few trips I'd been on where I was exposed to things, but it was one of the first times in my life where I was exposed to like everything the world had to offer. And I think, or I know it strengthened my faith, and it caused me to grow a lot and mature a lot in a lot of areas, because I think being more sheltered through my younger ages, I definitely just wasn't exposed to as much stuff, which, you know, is not a bad thing at all. But as I got older and matured more and was faced with more things in my life, it has definitely strengthened my faith. And, you know, now I spend, you know, 250, 300 days away from home on the road a year. And I'm in I just have a lot of situations and a lot of freedom that I'm in. And so it's kind of cool to just, you know, see the progression of, you know, being at home, and then, you know, starting my own, you know, faith journey, and being able to kind of branch away from just being with my parents. And, you know, I'm still obviously very close to my parents and all that stuff.
Yeah. That's awesome. I think it's interesting, your story where you've grown up in faith and you've kind of been in it. It's been your own almost since you were, pretty young, it sounds like, where I feel like a lot of guys that I know and have met, they've come to faith later in life. Like myself, I grew up in church, but then kind of fell away with my whole family and then came back to church on my own like 3 years ago when I was 26.
Yeah.
And I think someone that's like stuck in it the whole time has a unique perspective. So I'm really grateful that you have come on and are talking about it. I guess what would you say to someone that, okay, they're, trying to figure out faith now and, the story like, oh, well, I don't have like a testimony. So maybe I should like go and party or, do whatever I want, like chase the world versus your story where you've always kind of been consistent. Like what is there like a benefit to one way or the other, or what would you say that you've been able to gain from not kind of chasing the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been given salvation as a free gift from Jesus through his death on the cross, and like I think that's enough of a salvation story for anyone. And I think I've definitely gone through periods in my life where I have struggled with the thought that I don't have this crazy like come to Jesus moment where I'm on the road to Damascus and I'm blinded by a light and I wake up and it's like, oh, I should follow Jesus. Like I don't have this crazy story, but I think I've just seen time after time again how it's worth it. And I think so many people, it takes them to go down that road to realize, oh, maybe that's not worth it and following Jesus is worth it. And I think so many people end up kind of doing that. And, I'm here to tell you it's worth it and it's not worth going down that path. And I've seen so many people, even just that I, grew up in church with, and so many people that I was in small group, whatever it is, that ended up going down that path and they never came back. And it's so, obviously there's still, hope and, redemption that is on the table for them in their story.
Yeah.
But it is really sad to see that because, some people just end up getting, not liking the church, and it's the people in the church and people are broken. And there's so many different reasons that you kind of see that happening, but whatever reason it is, it's not worth it. And whatever, like the rebellion or whatever you're feeling it's not worth chasing, even though it's, sometimes it's like, oh, I wish I had a cooler story, but that's never a reason to turn just because you wish you had a cooler story.
Yeah. I think one thing that I have to deal with myself, from my time of not following Jesus is just a lot of, like shame and regret that I wish I, didn't have some of the things in my past that, if I had been following Jesus from a younger age, I might have, been in a relationship. I might have been married by now. I might have, had kids by now. I might have, been further along in my career. I don't know. Like, I feel like I made a lot of mistakes and like wrong turns. And since following Jesus, I have a lot more peace and clarity kind of in where I'm going in life. And, before I was always kind of like chasing things. So, I don't know if that like resonates with you at all as someone that has been following Jesus pretty much your whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gives you a certain peace. And, I think one thing I struggle with is the idea of like peace and contentment. Because, like you said, with relationships, with dreams and goals and all these things, like it is, for me, it is kind of a balance of being like, God's going to give me this when he's ready for me to have it. And also being like, I'm going to chase this with everything I can. And I would say with women and like relationships, that's not like the best strategy, but just in terms of like career and goals and things like that, like, that is something that I have, and it's a hard balance to be like, I trust that God has me here, but also I'm going to grind here. And like, I'm going to put in the work here. Yeah. Because I think it's easy to just kind of push the brakes. And that's something that I have, something I've heard from non-believers that see believers kind of using the story of their faith as sort of a cop-out for just having like a average, mundane, mediocre life. Or, you know, this guy was talking to me, and this is completely unrelated to even what we were just talking about with dating. But yeah, I think it's an interesting idea, just because, you know, someone was talking about, like, a buddy of mine was telling me, yeah, like, I hate when Christians, you know, have a bad running race, and they're like, it was God's plan.
Yeah.
It was God's plan. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm going to do better next time, but this was God's plan for it to happen. And it's like, yeah, like, God knew it was going to happen, but like, God doesn't just call you to like mediocrity, and like, you need to go, and whatever you did wrong in that race, like, you need to figure that out, and you need to address that for the next race going forward. And like, that's a simple example in my life as a, you know, runner. But, you know, if I'm swimming bad, or I'm like cornering bad in a race on a bike because my technical skills aren't good, I'm going to go ride 50, 90 degree corners to make sure I'm nailing my right hand corners.
Right.
Like, I'm not just going to say, oh, like, it was God's plan for me to like crash on that right hand turn.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, God knew it was going to happen, but like, I'm not going to let that happen again.
Right.
So I think sometimes people outside of the church can see and hear the church being an excuse. And that is something frustrating that I've seen just being in the church for a long time, is people almost just becoming complacent. And I think complacency and contentment are two different things. And I think sometimes that can kind of morph together. And if you get too content, and it creates complacency. And I think complacency is something we're never called to.
Yeah, that's good, man. I'm curious, you know, being 25 now, and, you know, following Jesus pretty much your whole life, would there be any like words of wisdom you'd have for your younger self, like, you know, 18, 21-year-old Darr, like something that if you could teleport back and tell him something now from everything that you've learned to this point, what would you say for advice?
Yeah, I would say, you know, one, it's worth it. Like, keep fighting.
Yeah.
But I also would say you're not going to feel like it every day. And I think that's something that I've probably learned through the lens of athletics a lot, is, you know, you're not going to feel good every day. You know, like I said at the beginning, like, it's been like 2 weeks since I felt good, and I'm finally feeling good right now because I'm on a down week. But like,
yeah,
you don't feel good every day. But like, in my faith, it's the same way. Like, I don't wake up every morning and I'm just like dying to read the Word of God. I wish I was. Like,
right.
I wish that was like just a burning desire in my life every single morning when I wake up. But I'm gonna be honest, it's not every single morning a burning desire. And, you know, that's something that I think it's like you gotta stay consistent with it.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether your heart or your whatever tells you to do it. Like, you gotta stay consistent, because there are just gonna be days where you're just not really feeling it.
Right.
And so I think consistency and keep showing up and keep doing it is really important. And that's something that I wish I had been better about when I was younger, because there definitely were days where I just, you know, my Bible sat on my shelf for, you know, a week. And I just was like, you know, I've been in church my entire life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to read the Bible. I've read every single Bible story there is to read 14 times.
Right.
So, you know, it's easy to kind of have that mindset when you've been in the church your entire life. So I wish I had been better about, you know, consistently reading the Word, even on days when I didn't always feel like it.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, moving into kind of like your dating history, and, you know, being 25 and hopefully an Olympic athlete here soon, has it been hard for you to like date, or what does that look like? You know, you said you're single now. How has that been kind of, you know, the last, I don't know, 6 or something years since you've been in college and everything like that?
Yeah, it's definitely been hard. And I've had some relationships in the last couple of years, and it is really hard. It's really hard to balance life as a professional athlete, living on the road as much as I'm on the road, and having a healthy relationship. And, when you're dating with the intention of marriage, it's hard to sort of think about marrying your life to someone when you're living on the road and everything you do to some extent is about you. Like, it's a pretty selfish thing that I'm doing. And, I recognize it's a gift that God's given me. And, I'm here to glorify God in everything I do. But it is like, I wake up every morning and I'm running and I'm swimming and I'm biking and I'm working really, really hard to hopefully make the Olympics. And so it is a really hard thing to kind of think about the marriage of another person into that story, and how does that kind of come together. And ultimately I want to be married and I want to have a family one day.
Yeah.
So, the tension really does exist, because you have to be all in with what you've got in front of you, and you don't make the Olympics by being an average athlete. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So trying to navigate relationships has been really hard, and the sacrifice involved and all of that stuff. And there might be a reason why I'm single right now, but it's really hard, and it's definitely been a struggle, and it's something that I still am working through and trying to figure out to this day.
Yeah. I think that's why I'm excited about this podcast and just where it can go in the future, because I feel like as single men, there's not a lot of great examples of single men who are kind of doing it well,
Yeah.
And so it's always like the pastor who's been married 30 years, giving marriage advice, or just hang in there, guys. See who's running next to you,
with the wife that's way out of their league every time.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully this could help, encourage guys who are younger than us. Like, oh, okay, this guy Darr's doing it. He's trying to make the Olympics. Like, wow, that's amazing. And he's trying to figure out relationships too. I'm just like him. So yeah, that's kind of my hope for the podcast in general. I guess in terms of actual dates that you've been on, and the relationships that you have had, what's kind of been things that you've enjoyed maybe about some of the relationships that you've had to this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like anytime you're dating someone, going on dates with someone, you sort of are able to see things you want and things that maybe you don't want and don't like. And you're also able to learn more about yourself in the process. And so I think it is a really helpful thing, obviously. And, the whole point of dating is to evaluate for marriage. And, there's obviously a lot of good resources out there that, have talked about that. But it's like an evaluation process, and, it's figuring out what is it that is going to make me the best man I can be, while also glorifying God as we come together and trying to figure that out. And I think it's really easy for guys to just kind of go through and just be like, this is what I want. I want them to check this box, this box, this box, this box, and sort of build your woman out.
Right.
And I know I've been guilty of doing that at times, where it's like, dude, you're not building a woman out here. You need to figure out where reality meets what your desires are. And not that the desires are bad.
Yeah.
But you got to figure out what reality actually looks like. And so, going on dates and, figuring things out like that, and talking to women and, whatever it is, I think trying to sort of evaluate in a way that's not going to cause heartbreak and that's not going to cause, issues down the road is something that I have been trying to learn how to do. And, whether that's more group setting stuff, and, you can see a lot how people act around their friends and around your friends. And, you can kind of evaluate in group settings where, you're not going on 14 dates with the same girl to try to figure out things. And, you start in group settings, and then you go on some one-on-ones, and you can kind of progress from there. And you don't have to have the ring purchased by the fourth date, but you can kind of start figuring things out pretty quickly if you start with, a good group setting and kind of work into the more one-on-one stuff.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's great advice. Have you done that yourself? As you've been trying to evaluate, what does that look like where you've okay, a girl's caught your eye? Like, how do you even,
Dude, no
what are you
woman
even
will
looking for?
ever talk to me, bro. That's just not possible. I've never done that. No, I definitely have. I mean, even in the last year, like I definitely have gone on some dates and just, trying to figure out like circles, and, unfortunately my circles are kind of small. So it is like a really like kind of tedious thing to sort of operate in that evaluation process when you're in not the largest circles. And, I'm kind of fishing from the same pond perhaps. And that's challenging sometimes, because you're kind of in this evaluation process. Like, all right, is this someone I want to spend the rest of my life with? Is this someone God's calling me to marriage with? And you're kind of just trying to figure all that out, while also not trying to, hurt people and hurt feelings and break people's hearts and, cause more, emotional stress in your life. So it's definitely a challenging thing, but it is something I definitely have done that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then for guys that are, trying to figure out dating, or maybe they're, in circles with girls and group settings, like any advice or tips on, okay, like actually asking the girl out? Like, how have you done that in the past?
Just fire off a DM on Instagram. I mean, I think it just depends. Like, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I haven't fired off some Instagram DMs.
Yeah.
But
has it been successful?
I mean, I'm not going to say it's been unsuccessful.
Okay.
I'm not married, so
right.
You could judge the level of success based on that. But no, I think, it depends. If you're really close with one of their friends, you can, say, hey, I'm thinking about taking so-and-so on a date. You think they'd say yes? Or, like, you don't have to, like, whatever. Like, you can kind of gauge and, figure things out. Because if you are operating in a pretty small, like, circle with a lot of friends and things like that, it can get messy really quickly. So, sometimes it's easier to just kind of, ask one of their friends, and then, maybe get a number and kind of have things set up that way. And that can be a little bit cleaner sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you're not really in the same circles with them, if you approach them at church and say, hey, I'd like to take you, to dinner sometime, whatever. If you want to just do a cold approach like that, you could do that, or just fire off the Instagram DM.
Yeah. Okay. Good tips. I like it.
Thanks.
Let's say, okay, you're out, at church in small circles, like a girl wanted to show some type of interest in you or something like that, right? Do you think that's okay? Or like, should girls just be letting the guys pursue? And I don't know, what are your thoughts on a girl showing some interest, and how would be a good way for a girl to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I think if you talk to a guy, like you go talk to him after church on a Sunday, I think pretty quickly he's going to be like, oh, she's kind of interested. I should ask for her number right now. And that's also on guys to, pick up clues.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of guys are a little clueless at times.
Yeah. And for 100%, I will be the first to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, also maybe it's just you're not interested in the girl, so you're just she talks to you and you're like, yeah, cool. But
right.
But no, I mean, if the girl's coming up and talking to you, which totally fine, like for a girl to do that and like kind of put herself out there and like start a conversation with you, you can, why not ask for a number after the conversation, whatever it is. And
yeah,
if you want to like kind of try to get the ball rolling, and like the girl can initiate, the guy can initiate, whatever. But, take clues. And if you're not interested, then don't do anything with it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And then I want to close with one more dating question. What do you think about like the balance between being intentional in dating and just kind of like, letting things come to you? Like, how do you balance the two of those?
You mean like in a relationship, or when you're like potential relationship? Like trying to figure out like, okay, should I keep dating this girl? Should I ask her on a date? Like,
should I be really intentional about it, or like sit back and, all right, God, if it's supposed to be, like, you'll have it work out?
I mean, to be honest, I feel like it kind of depends on where you're at in life. So I think if you're 29 and you could see yourself getting married in the next year, I mean, bro, all gas, no brakes.
Yeah.
You know, you can be intentional. You can go for it.
Yeah.
If you are more in the kind of stepping back, evaluating side of things mentally, then maybe don't go all in super quickly. And I'm generally just a hesitant person to go all in dating, because I want to take time to figure out if this is the direction I want to go, and I don't want to give all of myself too early on, because one, it's a hard thing to do. It's hard to put yourself out there, but two, like, it saves a lot of hurt for both people if you're a little more cautious going into it, because, you know, obviously you want to show interest, but you don't want to just smother them and then be like, actually, I'm not really that interested.
Yeah.
Because I think that's, you know, I've been there. Like, I've been in that situation where it's like, I'm like being really intentional. I'm doing a really good job with communication, and I'm doing a good job planning great dates.
Yeah. What's the best date you've ever been on?
Well, oh gosh. So I was dating a girl who was studying abroad in Barcelona.
Okay.
And I was one town over training, and I went in with my buddy for like the day, and I picked her up on a moped.
Wow.
And we went to eat food.
Nice.
I thought that was pretty fun.
Tapas or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Some good tapas in Barcelona.
Oh, yeah.
But no, it was good. No, but I don't know. It's hard because you don't want to make it something until it is something, and you also want to just like, you want to be cautiously, you know, hesitant in some ways, because, you know, you want to save yourself a little bit if it doesn't end up going anywhere. And obviously the only way to know if it's going to go somewhere is to kind of put yourself out there a little bit, but
yeah,
you can still be cautious in doing that. And I think that's something that you kind of learn by going on dates maybe. And it's something you learn in the process of dating, how to do that in a way that's going to be respectful of the woman and give her enough to where she's going to also know if this is going to go somewhere, or if she wants it to go somewhere with you because of, you know, who you are, because it's, you know, maybe she might not be interested, you know, whatever. So
yeah,
I think being cautious is never a bad thing, but it also depends, you know, if you're ready to get married, like now,
yeah,
like just go for it. Like just fire the DMs,
right?
Just go.
Fire them off.
I mean, honestly, yeah.
Do you like pray for your wife, or what does that look like as a single man?
I do, yeah, and it's crazy. Like, my dad has been praying for my future spouse since literally for as long as I can remember. Like when we would pray at night, and you know, it wasn't something I was praying for as a 4-year-old, but it was something that my father has been praying for my entire life. So kind of him modeling that example is something that has been kind of cool, and for sure it's something that, you know, I pray for, and, you know, just like, you know, in whatever season I'm in, like continuing that.
Yeah, love that. And then last thing, so let's say Darr, someone just, you know, has been listening here for 30 plus minutes. Okay, awesome, this guy Darr, he's, you know, hopefully going to be in the Olympics this year, maybe, you know, maybe 2028, hopefully. And okay, maybe I'll see him on TV, but I'm going to go back to my life now, you know, all right, back to work, back to the drive, you know, back to the weekend. What's one thing you want someone that's been listening this whole time to take away? Like, okay, let me write this down, or all right, here's the one piece of wisdom from Darr.
All right, I'm gonna say 2 things.
Okay.
I hope I'm not breaking the rules
Two
here.
takeaways.
I'm gonna say 2 takeaways. So the first thing, and something that just has been something I've been feeling a lot recently, is something that I've been trying to communicate anytime I have a microphone in front of me.
Yeah.
And that's just be all in with whatever's in front of you right now. And it's a pretty simple message, but I think it's really easy for us to not do that. And I think that's a way of life that the enemy sells us. And I think whether, you're following Jesus or, whatever it is, like, be all in with your faith, be all in with your work, be all in with, whatever it is, like, your sports team, because I think it's pretty easy to kind of live in this space of, I think God will want to use me like when I'm like married with a family, or when I get this promotion, or I get into this college, or I get into this school, or I get this job, or, whatever it is. Like, I think it's really easy to kind of kick that down the line, and always it's the next thing. So, I'm in high school, and it's like, once I get to like Georgia, then like God's going to want to use me there. And like, I'm going to kind of like coast here because I'm senior year, like doesn't really matter, whatever,
right?
And it's just kind of something that you can keep kicking. And today it's like I'm here, I'm traveling a lot, and whatever, but like God's gonna want to use me once I make the Olympics. I'm gonna chase the Olympics with everything I have right now, but like God's gonna want to use me. So like just be all in with what God has in front of you right now, and recognize that He can use you today, and it's not something that is kicked down the road for further use. So that's one thing.
Yeah, I love that.
But then the other thing, and it's sort of, they kind of go together, but like, I feel like so many people, and myself included, live in this space where, we're always kind of looking for like what we should do. Like we're kind of looking for like, encouragement to do whatever it is. And, like you listening to a podcast, whatever it is, like podcasts are amazing, and like they can provide so much encouragement and motivation and stuff. But I feel like so many times in life, you just got to start doing it, like whatever it is, or stop doing it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think we have so much knowledge in our head of what our lives can look like, could look like, should look like. And it's really easy to just kind of keep dreaming and not actually doing. And it's really easy to just operate in the sphere of like, I should start doing this, and just like do it. Like, what you need to do. Like, what steps you need to take. And I'm a big fan of just like actionable steps.
Yeah.
And like figuring out actionable steps to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, and just do them, because you don't need someone else to tell you on a podcast how to find motivation to do this.
Right.
You don't need another ice bath. You don't need another sauna session.
Yeah.
Like, do those things because they're great. I do them all the time, but you don't need this stuff to know what you need to do. Like, what you need to do tomorrow morning when you wake up. Like, just do it. And that's something that's just been, you hear that this kind of like, you hear that narrative a lot, and it's like, trying to motivate people to do things in life.
Yeah.
It's like, just do it, because most of us have a pretty good idea of what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing, and what we should be cutting out of our lives. So like, just do it. Like, start tomorrow. Like, do it, or start right now.
Yeah. Love that, man. So encouraged. I think that was great.
That's so fun. That just stuff kind of just fires me up a little bit sometimes, and I'm just like, man, like just do it. Just,
right.
Whatever's in front of you, just do it.
Just
do it now.
That's the Shia LaBeouf thing.
Yeah.
Just do it. I like it. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode with Darr. And if you think that this episode would encourage someone else out there, a friend of yours, a family member, I'd love it if you could shoot them the link and tell them, hey, check out this guy Darr's story. I think it'll encourage you. Hope you have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you next week for another episode. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. If someone you know would benefit from this week's episode, I'd love for you to text them the link and invite them to listen. You never know how a simple invitation could change someone's life. We'll be back next Friday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, with a new episode. Until then, check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and you can engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.